We're live. Should have had a dramatic interest there. Smiths, can you hear me?
Is that a vacuum? Something that was an oxygen.
Try YouTube Premium free. Are we live? Oh, we're good. Stop that. Don't want to listen to that. All right. 1 minute's not too bad. All right. Hopefully we beat the vacuum tonight. Last time, I think they made their way about mid second floor. So we'll be here for 10 minutes and then we'll be done. This is actually the shortest printout that I've ever had, though. It's 7 pages. Usually my Bible studies are 8 and my Sunday mornings are 10 to 12. This is literally 1 character short of going to the 8th page. So we might be here for 15 minutes. We'll see. I like how you had me on the page that I was supposed to be on for my first verse last week, so I'm definitely doing that going forward. Last week, I lied to you from the pulpit, so cast your stones. I said it was an intro to an intro, but it was just an intro. So last week, we looked at Genesis chapter 3, kind of framed our lesson around the concept of God asking Adam, "Where art thou?" And I played off the whole, the Google Maps thing. And that was an intro to the concept of what our study is going to be. It's going to be our Google Maps study, essentially, whatever you want to call it. But we're going to look at the concept of, knowing where you come from to be able to establish where you are so that you can see where you're going. So I asked myself that question a couple times this week. We studied it out. We looked at it, the where are you? And our whole lesson was based off of that. So I tried to reflect that in my own life this week. And I asked myself that a couple times and I liked the answer. And I asked myself that a couple times this week and I did not like the answer. It's a back and forth battle. I know you guys probably have, things that I think we all have 2 sides. I think that we have the side that we share with people and we have the side that we don't. And I think, honestly, our spouse gets most of the side that we don't share with everybody, but I think that there's even a slice, maybe even a sliver of a side to our emotions or our decisions that we keep locked away because it's scary. It's fearful. I scare myself at least a little bit. The things that frustrated me this week when I asked myself where I was and I didn't like it, I found that a lot of the things that were affecting it were very silly. A football game, an email that was not my fault, right? If everybody's ever been per my last emailed, I don't like that. I got that twice today, actually. I got per my last email, and that's just a nice way of saying you're an idiot and you didn't pay attention to what I just said. And I sit there and I'm like, I could send this 15 times a day. So I get it twice because of somebody else. But nevertheless, it's okay. But I was looking at those instances, right? I was asking myself in the morning and in the afternoon and at night. And I found that most of the time when I was frustrated and when I was finding myself not where I wanted to be, it wasn't this soul-wrenching, life-changing thing. It was something as silly as a Chiefs game or an email, And I like what Joe says. He says, "Soft as Charmin." That was me this week. So we used the 3-point outline last week in regards to pinpointing our location, right where we are, and that is in order to understand that, where we've come from, so that we can know where we are, so that we can see where we're going. And I saw this today. Actually, it was a kind of a last second thing, but if you have Snapchat or if you have Facebook, they do the memory sync. Right. So like it'll be 6 years ago on this day or 3 years ago on this day. And that is based off of looking in the past. So it kind of filters into this whole where have you been? And my timeline around now pops up a lot of videos from 2016 because in September of 2016 is when I broke my leg. So I didn't do anything. I sat around and I played around with Snapchat filters and I played video games and I was worthless because I broke my leg. So those aren't the greatest moments, but typically when you get these flashbacks, right, they're this kind of this facade of good times, right? They show you, typically you don't take videos of the worst times of your life and you don't want to see them again, and you don't hold them in your camera roll. Hey, look how bad my day was. You take pictures of things that you like, and you take videos of concerts and vacations and what you've done that you like and that you want to see again and that you want to show other people. So when that pops up on your memories and your Snapchat brings it back and your Facebook has it, and there's a time hop, I think that was the old app, it almost paints this picture of those times being better, right? And it's kind of a false sense of security, right? Maybe they were, but for the most part, that's a kind of a false sense of security around that time. Now, you can take a video that lasted 30 seconds on last year on September 27th, and it was probably something with Adeline's birthday, and it was great. But that doesn't always mean that the past is a great thing to hold on to. It leads to convincing myself sometimes that I was better off in those times. I sit here today and I have a bad day and I look at a video from 3 years ago where I was at a concert on September 28th. It's like, man, life was so much better then, or life was so much easier then. I wish I could get back to those times. And it's just not, it's not true, right? There's good times and you can have good times, but going back and to digress based off of these previous things where you've been based, on our concept here, doesn't always mean that life was just better then. It paints that picture, but it's not always true. Life has a way of always providing stress if we'll take it. I think I'm very good at absorbing stress and taking it on. I've perfected that one. And that we're always looking for something in the future too. I need to just read my notes. Life was simpler and better, when in reality, most of the time that isn't true. Life has a way of always providing stress if we'll take it, in hard times, and that's why we're always looking for something in the future, right? The next step is going to fix our problems. The next thing I do is going to fix everything that I'm doing. And I thought it was kind of funny that the only place that we can live in our life is the present, right? But we're continuously looking back on greater times, and we're only ever focused on what comes next in the future to fix where we're at. And I think that that's where we get lost. That's the vicious cycle of my own. I'm always looking back. This was better time. This was easier. This wasn't as hard. If I do this tomorrow, if I do this next week, I can fix, and I don't even know where I'm at. So it's kind of a full circle thing here. It's easy to look at high schoolers when they complain. I know you're around them a lot. Perfect example today, right? You look at high schoolers who think that their life is just, oh my goodness, stressful, and it's the end of the world every day. And you say, well, man, just wait till you get to college and see what your stress level does then, right? And then you get to college and you think that their life is over and you're stressed and you're bogged down. And then you have somebody say, well, wait till you become an adult and you work a job, right? You just take it further. Wait, you look at a couple that doesn't have kids. Wait till you have kids. You take a couple with kids and say, wait till you have problems or health issues. It doesn't ever fix itself. It's just going to be that next step of what happens and how we take the stress. So life is always going to provide that. I almost always get a quote from The Office in here because it's really only I genuinely think, is that the only show that we've ever started and finished from the beginning? I'm not good at that stuff. Short attention span. Lock and Key. Yeah, but that's like 3 seasons of like 8 episodes. So that's not much of an accomplishment, but you are right. Anyway, in The Office, Andy says, and I quote, "I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you've actually left them." Right? Kind of cliche, kind of corny. I get it, but it rings pretty true. And it hit me, honestly, kind of hard this week. I was thinking about that. If there was a way, would I realize it to know that we're in the good old days right now? I'm constantly caught up in looking backwards at how easy things used to be and looking forward at the checklist of items that I've created to make life better. And I'm probably missing exactly what God wants for me to have right here. The idea or the concept of, there's the old adage, if you don't want somebody to find something, you hide it in plain sight, right? Everybody's going to go, if you came in here and you tried to find something, the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to look under the bookshelves. I'm probably going to lift the cushion. I'm going to try to find the most secretive place and look there. But who would ever think that it would be right on the board, right? Who would ever think that it would be on the podium in the middle of the room? And I think that sometimes when we get caught up in this where we're going or where we're at, we forget just how far we've come from. And God is right there trying to show us. So This is an intro, like I said. It's a long one, but I'm getting there. Brett taught on reflection and refraction. I don't know if you guys remember that lesson, but he had a really cool concept with the straw and the water, right? And so when you put the straw in the water, it is refracting light. And so when you look at that, it's not a perfect perspective. It's not showing you exactly what that straw is providing you with light. I don't do it even remotely justice that he does because he's the smart one. But that's why when you look at it, the straw looks like it's coming in here, and then in the water, it looks like it's here because it's refracting the light. It's not a true perspective of what you're truly looking at. But a reflection, what you see in a mirror or when that light is perfect, it's a true one-to-one ratio of exactly what you're supposed to see. And that perspective can be made clear. Perspective, I should just do like a lesson on P's because I'm not good with patience. I'm not good with perspective. Right? I'll just keep it there. That's going to be our next line of studies if Brett doesn't kick me out of here. But the proper perspective can change literally everything. In my education, in my college degree, you learn that lighting can change everything. On a stage, in a musical performance, in a venue, lighting does everything. It can change the dynamic, it can change the mood, the temperature. Perspective is that for a person, I think. I truly think that a perspective can change everything. It can change how you wake up during the day, what you spend your time with, who you spend your time with, how you feel about your job, all kinds of different things. And a proper perspective in any situation will empower you to make the right decision, even when it's hard. And it will empower you to see the bigger picture when everything around you seems to be falling down. And I believe most importantly, the right perspective keeps you grounded and connected with what God is doing. That's where I get myself lost. I get so caught up in where I've been and where I'm going that I'm trying to make this, whatever I'm doing now, the most important thing. What is today? Wednesday, of course. This Wednesday is the most important Wednesday that I've ever lived in my entire life. And if I don't get this checklist done, then I'm in a bad shape, right? And that's just not how it works. The nation of Israel, they're always our guinea pig here. We know that they find themselves in trouble all the time. Okay. Their tendency is to flounder and squirm when their feet aren't immediately held to the fire. And we've seen firsthand just how far away from God they can get in a very short time. God repeatedly brings them to a place of blessing where he can work in their life if they would be still and allow him to do so, if they would understand where they've come from, what he's trying to do, and where he's trying to take them. So everybody's probably heard the phrase, let go and let God. I don't believe that is in the Bible. I did look it up. That is a catchphrase. That's a slogan, right? We want to try to be careful of those, but it does ring somewhat true. The only thing that I don't like to do in life, or the only thing that I'm not good at in life that I enjoy doing, is fishing. You're not going to find me doing many things that I'm not good at and enjoying it. Okay, but I like to fish, and I'm a horrible fisherman, right? But the concept with fishing is understanding where you're going and letting the lure do the work, right? In fishing, you can't see the fish under the water most of the time. That's cheating. And you can't see the lure under the water most of the time. It's kind of cheating, right? But if you know that it's the proper lure and you know that you're in the proper spot and you give it time and you let the lure do the work, then it basically catches the fish and literally all you have to do is reel, okay? If we let God do what he's supposed to do and he works with us and we're here and we know that this is the right lure and we're in the right pond and we're in the right spot, then he will do the work and he will tell us where we're coming from. He'll come and get us. He'll let us know where we are and he'll take us where he wants us to go if we will let him. So 15-minute intro. I'm done. We're going to look at Exodus. We're going to look at the nation of Israel. So we're going to take our little 3-point outline from last week of the where you've been, where you are, where you're going, and we're going to look at the where you've been. We're going to start there. So in Exodus chapter 12, familiar story. Actually, I lied to you again. It's Exodus 14, verse 10, so you can turn that first page. I'll pray before I forget. Dear God, thank you for this beautiful night, Lord. Thank you for this place that we can come together and open your book. I pray that you get me out of the way, help me to articulate what it is that you've given me this past week, and just help it to make sense, help it to be an honor and a glorification to you, Lord, that we can use it, we can hide it in our heart and give it to somebody else should they need it, and that we would just continue to do what it is that you'd have for us, Lord, that we would be prioritizing you over anything and everything. I just pray that you make that clear to us, and thank you for your son and his sacrifice and everything that you do for us. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. We're going to go through kind of a stair-step approach tonight. It's really the same concept of the nation of Israel looking backwards, looking for an answer that isn't supposed to be there because of what they already know, and God saying, please, for the love of God, just listen to me. Okay, you don't want to be there, right? And I see that in my own life, so that's why we're looking at it tonight. Exodus 14:10 says, and we're going to go to 12, so 10 through 12. And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them, and they were sore afraid. And the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord. And they said unto Moses, because there were no graves in Egypt, hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness? Wherefore hast thou dealt thus with us, to carry us forth out of Egypt? Is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness. That is a scary one. Yeah. There's some scary verses in the Bible. You know, I think about the Matthew 27, where they say, you know, put his blood on us and our sons, right, when Jesus is being crucified. And the Acts 26 with King Agrippa, when he says, almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian. I mean, you think about, you get to sit front row to just how close some of these people that we know and love are to accepting Christ and becoming Christians. And this is one of them. I mean, they're so salty about things, you know, they're so angry and they're so just vindictive about things. It's nothing that a Christian would ever do, right? It's nothing that we would ever say. We would never get to that point where we would treat the Lord like that. But there's something comforting about the devil that we know, right? The cliche saying that, well, it's the devil that we know, right? I at least know what it is. I can deal with it. It may be bad for us and it may be something that's potentially destructive to our lives, but it's better than the unknown because we can at least taste it. We can at least touch it. We can at least hear it, right? We can look at the Israelites here and point fingers, but we know it's the same in our own life. There's nothing quite like saying, God, you're not enough. We would rather just stay here and serve the Egyptians. That is crazy to me. Where am I at? Yeah. We'd rather just stay here and serve the Egyptians. At least we get good food and shelter here. I mean, you think about prisoners nowadays. They get 3 meals a day. They get shelter. I mean, it's better than some people live. We would have been better off if you would have just left us alone. Leave us alone with the Egyptians. You brought us out here to die. We at least got food there. They at least gave us shelter. Right? We're allowed to have a bad day here and there. Okay, you catch me on a bad day, I say dumb stuff. I do. I've had my fair share of them lately, but being content is hard sometimes. Right? It really is. It shouldn't be. That's the perspective issue that we're talking about. Sometimes I have to stop myself and ask, you know, am I really having a bad day? Or is this a bad 15 minutes that I've turned into 24 hours and now I'm taking it out on my wife and my friends and the Lord and my relationship and my fellowship, right? Well, my first meeting today was at 8:00 and the doctor was really mean to me. So I guess I can't read my Bible tonight. Like, come on, guys. It's a perspective thing, right? I think it's in these moments sometimes that's where we truly lose sight of where we've come from. We have these great things and we have this church and we have these people and these friends and these family and we have these things and it's a one email or it's literally a Chiefs game. I feel so stupid saying that. And you just throw it out the window to be angry for 12 hours. Sarah hates football season because my entire Sunday is based emotionally on whether the Chiefs win or the Chiefs lose. And she knows that and I know that and I hate it. And I would love to fix it. And I'm not going to say that I can't, but it's a problem, right? I forget, right? I'll just leave church. Had a great service this morning. Heard about salvation, heard about patience, heard about emotional intelligence. And at noon, it's gone. Immediately. I forget where I've come from. That's essentially what the nation of Israel is doing here. Egypt is a type of the world in the Bible. Okay, it pictures, and I know you guys know that, but it pictures the world system and it pictures the oppression of everything against God and what he stands for. So when we read this, it's important to realize just exactly what they're doing. The nation of Israel looks backwards and says, God, this is why we told you we didn't want to hang out with you. God, this is why we told you we didn't want to hang out with your plan. We didn't want to hang out with your steps and what we needed to do. You brought us out here to work, and you brought us out here to die. Just give us back to the world. They took care of us perfectly fine, right? It was a little tough, little hands-on work, little sweaty day, but we got food. They took care of us. They're not leaving us out here in the wilderness to die. It's the same thing in our life, right? I'll just make myself the poster child. You guys can fill yourself in. But God, this is why I told you I didn't want to hang out with you. I don't have time for church, okay? I don't have time to read my Bible today. I don't have time to do a softball devotion. I don't have time to outline discipleship. I don't have time to do all of this stuff, okay? NFL Red Zone and the Chiefs take care of me enough on Sunday, all right? Just leave me alone. I got enough to deal with Monday through Friday with my job. Just leave me alone, all right? The world takes care of me fine on Saturday and Sunday, right? Bondage is a real thing. It really is. And without the proper perspective, you can find yourself very happy sitting in the slop of this world, right? I look at abusive relationships, and from the outside, you look at these and you say, why would you not leave? Why would you want to stick around? Why would you allow that to happen? But bondage is a real thing, mentally and physically and spiritually and emotionally. It truly is. I don't know about you. Has anybody here ever been around pigs? Like pigs, not like the cute petting zoo stuff. They're absolutely disgusting creatures. They are horrible. I like the smell of country. Like I like the smell of fresh cut grass. I like the smell of cows. I like the smell of I do. It smells like freedom to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. My dad grew up going to a farm in his grandma's, and I got to go a couple times out there. So I don't know. But pigs are disgusting. They cool themselves by literally wallowing in their own excrement. Okay. They have to cool themselves. You see elephants do it, but elephants are not disgusting creatures. They use the mud and they go to the watering hole and they cool themselves there. But pigs are lazy and they're fat and they're disgusting. And instead of getting up and finding the water hole and going to the source of truth, they just use their droppings, right? And I'm sure you know where it's going, right? It's exactly what we do spiritually. I hope for the love of God, you don't physically do that. But spiritually, it's what we do, right? We take what we know, we've already ingested it, and it comes out, and we just use that to suffice. We don't go and get new information. We don't look at where God has taken us now and where he's trying to take us. We just say, hey, God, I know that worked in the past. I know that I can get at least a little bit of relief from here. That's what I'm going to do, and that's where I'm going to stay. If that isn't a picture of the nation of Israel historically and the New Age Christian inspirationally, then I don't really know what is. I mean, that is a perfect epitome of what we're doing. Instead of going out to look for the living water, Jesus says that will quench, good timing, right? Quench forever, John 4:14. We just stay within the confines of this little pig pen because it's what we know. It's where we've been. It's the situation that we've created for ourselves. And instead of that, we just wallow in this spiritual waste that we've created for ourselves. You know the saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? God can lead an Israelite out of Egypt and across the dirt of the very nation that held them in bondage, across the seafloor on dry land, into a land of supernatural food and protection, but he can't make them appreciate it or want to be there. And he can't do the same thing for me. He can save my soul. He can bring me out of bad situations and pitfalls that I dug for myself and relationships and friendships and jobs and do all these different things. And he can bring me out of that, but he can't make me like it. He can't make me appreciate it. And he can't make me look back and say, I don't want to be a part of that. Because I'd be lying to you if I ever said I didn't do that. I'd be lying if I said I never looked back and said, it was a little easier. It was a little more fun. It was a little more calm. Hebrews 12, 1 through 5. Let me turn over there. Got me all freaked out now. The Bible app actually isn't verbatim every time. We found that with the Smiths, so now I'm all nervous. Hebrews 12, 1 through 5. Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doth so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him that endured such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest ye be wearied and faint in your minds. Lord, help us if we get faint at the physical and exertion of what Jesus Christ did. I wouldn't want you to get too tired about reading about what he did. Ye have not yet resisted unto blood, striving against sin, and ye have forgotten the exhortation which speaketh unto you as unto children. My son, despise not thou the chastening of the Lord, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him. Well, I went one verse too long, but I wrote it wrong, so I read it. But, I mean, think about that, right? He says, what is it, in verse 3, for consider him, that's a lesson in and of itself. Just consider him, right? Against himself, lest ye be wearied and faint in your minds at the work that he's done. It says, don't forget where you've come from. He talks about the sin which doth so easily beset us. When I read this, I think about myself. A lot of times I read and I'm like, the nation of Israel is so dumb. I can't believe that they would do this. I can't believe that they would say this. But when I read that, that is just that's me, right? I'm the poster child of that. It makes me angry because it seems silly. Why would you do that to a loving father? It makes me nervous because it's so easily to find ourselves in that predicament. Proverbs 26:11 says, as a dog returneth to his vomit, so a fool returneth to his folly. Again, I mean, it's a disgusting concept, really, but it couldn't be more accurate, right? I'll keep it surface level. I don't know how strong I know how not strong the stomach is of some people, but it really is. It's a physical representation of a spiritual mentality that we hold. And if you think about a dog does not do tricks for you to please you, and a dog does not obey you to please you. A dog does tricks for you, and a dog obeys you because you reward it. It's looking for food, right? That's why you have pocket trainers and snacks and greenies and minties and chewy squeaky toys. A dog is out for self-preservation because that's all it knows, right? It's hard to take. I want to believe that Cooper loves us and he wants to be the best thing for us and make us so happy, but he's hungry. He's a dog, right? A dog is out for self-preservation and food, and that's the way to their heart. Okay, don't get me wrong. Dogs are incredibly intelligent. They're not just slobbering food machines like some people are, but they are an animal. That was rude. I shouldn't have said that, but it's true. They have instincts to eat, protect, and reproduce. That's about it. So when you think about that, that's pretty much me. I'm a dog, right? Eat, sleep, protect, reproduce. That's pretty much what men are after. We're dogs most of the time, spiritually speaking. I mean, you could say really speaking, but we aren't really interested in truly pleasing our master. We don't do tricks for him to please him. We don't do, we're not obedient to him because we are excited or we enjoy seeing where he's brought us to where we are so then we can go somewhere with him. We want a reward. We want food. We want that minty or that greenie, or we want that bowl of food. We want that water. We want the slot from the table, the extra chicken from the Chick-fil-A. That's why we do it. Where am I at? God reward me because I did what I was supposed to do. And when that reward doesn't end up being what we expect it to be, we have the understanding of a literal dog most of the time. And we say, well, I'll just go back to what worked for me last time. That's not what I expected, God. I did this. Why is this not a better reward? I got this last time I did this. I got this from the world. So you're basically putting him up for, argument's sake. Well, Lord, what are you going to do? Like undersell God, right? It's like a used car salesman. Like, well, you're going to give me this. If I do this and I obey you, then I get this. But the world offered me this, and I can go get that right now. I don't have to wait on them. I don't have to ask them. So I'm just going to go back and get that, right? Cooper has definitely learned where his food is. He knows where it is. That's why I moved it from the office, because he would go in there and he would sit in front of the bag and he would lick the bag. That's not how it works, man. But we've been working with them lately to actually learn the commands, right? We become so repetitive in this, where we've come, where we are. We're like, okay, I know I do this. He comes up to me when we say you want a treat, and he sits, lays down, shakes, and jumps like all in one fell swoop. It's like it's kind of pretty impressive, to be honest with you, because he comes up and he's like wiggling around. But that's not true obedience, right? That's just memory. That's muscle memory and saying, I've done this. This is where I've been. This is what rewarded me last time. This is what I'm going to do again. That's not genuine obedience, and that's not following direction. That's looking back in the rear view and saying, this is what worked. I'm going to do it again. Right? The nation of Israel isn't looking at true obedience. They're not trying to actually do what God has asked them to do. They're saying, here's what we did to get out of Egypt. Here's what we did to get across the Red Sea. Here's what we did to get away from the Egyptian army. I'm going to do it again. And if not, I'm just going to go back. Right? That's not how that works. God, I don't want to take direction from you and do this your way because it's harder. Frankly, I think you're just teasing me with the treat. Right? I know you're just making me put on a show for the visitors. You're not going to give me the treat at all, so I'm just going to go back to the food bowl, right? And then what happens when you go back to the food bowl and it's empty, right? He goes over there and Cooper's like, well, I don't want to do your trick. I'm going to go over to the food bowl. And I'm standing there. I'm like, you don't have any food, right? Joke's on you, right? God says, go ahead, go back to Egypt, see what happens. Your food bowl is empty there. You don't have, there's nothing there for you, right? Then you find yourself back to step 2. You know where you've been, right? Kind of that caught in the cookie jar moment. Well, I've been here and there was food here last time, but now there's not food here. Now you're back to what we looked at last week. Where art thou? Where are you? Your food bowl's empty. What are you going to do now? So I want to think about this gradual process. Wow, I'm going really fast. That's a good thing. Usually I'm really slow. But think about this as a gradual process that the nation of Israel seems to be taking. I'm going to kind of course correct here. It's very similar to my life. It's very frustrating to read this and see myself. I still have, this is kind of our last concept here. We still have 3 pages, so we got some time. But if you look at the standard, they give us a great pattern, and that's what we're going to look at. They start with just wanting to keep their life. That's their standard. That's their threshold. And Exodus chapter 14 says, why couldn't you just leave us alone? It would have been better to stay here and serve the Egyptians than to come out into the wilderness and die. That's their standard. We just want our life. Right? There's no strings attached to that. The worst thing that could happen to them is that they could die. And I think it's kind of funny. It was taught to me. I didn't come up with this, but when you ask somebody if they're a good person, right? And I know you guys have heard this before. You ask them, like, are you a good person? Like, do you think yourself as a good person? What's the answer they always give you? Well, I've never killed anybody, right? It's like, I'm glad we're starting there. I'm glad we're starting with the standard that you've never killed anybody. That's a good start, right? Maybe we can take that a little bit further. You're not a murderer. But what I mean is the nation of Israel, they think at this point that they're going to die. And the most precious thing to them is their life, right? And that's basically what they're using against God at this point. But in this instance, the most important to them was the preservation of their life. Being in bondage, not being set free or able to be their own nation, being whipped and beaten, bad living quarters, sleeping situations probably. They said, God, why couldn't you just leave us alone, at least in Egypt where we had our lives? We'll take the bad living quarters and getting beaten and not eating a whole lot, but we at least lived. Now we're out in this wilderness. You rescued us from all this stuff, and now we're going to die, right? A lot of Christians tend to do that too, as myself. God, why did you come waltzing into my camp here and start bothering me, right? Why couldn't you just leave me alone in this sucky relationship? Why couldn't you just leave me alone at this sucky job? Why can't you just leave me alone, right? I had a lane. It was a sucky lane. I was going 35 in the fast lane, but I at least was going. I was at least moving. You came in here, and you're seemingly the problem for the traffic stop, and now I'm not going anywhere, right? Just having their life, just waking up with oxygen in their lungs at first was enough. That was enough for them. But now, where am I at? Man, I've been looking up a lot tonight. When we get through, yeah, it's a hierarchy. I mean, we're okay with our lives first, but then we just take it a step further, right? Just having our lives isn't the most important order on the totem pole after we realize that that's expected. When we realize that God isn't there to take our life, or he's not waiting around the corner like Bob talked about with the baseball bat, just waiting to whack us, then we get a little bit more comfortable, right? Our Christianity becomes a little complacent, and we say, well, God's not going to take my life, obviously. God did all this work. He needs me to do this work. So he's not going to take my life. So then what's the next step? It says Exodus 16, when we sat by the flesh pots and when we did eat bread to the full, for ye have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. So now it's not a problem of keeping their life. Now it's the fact that God isn't sustainable enough to feed them, right? I'm good with my life. I'm good with what you've given me, and you've given me this life to live. But you expect me to live this life and you're not going to feed me now? You're not going to bring me food and feed my plate? You know, sometimes in life when we get to the very end of our rope or the bottom of the barrel or whatever it is, all we care about is saving our life. That's where it starts. That's the baseline. You know, I know I've prayed I promise if you get me out of this, I'll never do it again, Lord. If you just let me live through this or let me get out of this, I promise I'll never do it again. Fingers crossed behind my back, lying through my teeth. Okay. And this is where the little hierarchies in our relationship that we put on God come from, right? Okay, God, I lost my job. I need your help getting back on my feet. Okay, God, you got me this job, but you really think I can support myself on this salary? Okay, God, you got me the salary, but I can tell you're just trying to waste my time and mess with me because now I don't have what this next person got. Okay, God, my laptop doesn't work now. What am I supposed to do? The salary doesn't compensate for the food and the laptop I need. Okay, God, you got me this, you got me that, but I can't work from home. You want me to be away from my family? You really want me to do this? This is asinine. How am I supposed to do this? It just keeps going. We forget where we come from. I know it's in here somewhere. I don't want to say I skipped over it. If I have to say it again, I'll say it again. When we got saved, that it was enough. Jesus Christ was enough for us. If it only lasted 5 seconds, it only lasted 5 seconds. But in that moment, when we realized truly where we came from and who we were, Jesus Christ in that moment was enough. And at that point forward, we decide the trajectory of where we are and where we're going. And I think that sometimes we take him out of the driver's seat. And the problem is, taking it back to the work thing, is we can't satisfy this flesh. The nation of Israel was unpleasable. You can say it because it says it in there, right? You can say that the Christians are the same way, regardless. In the story, you cannot please the nation of Israel. It doesn't matter what you do, what he gives them, where he takes them. They just complain. They do. Moses leaves. They complain. They make a golden calf. He gets them out of Egypt, and they say, they take me back. He takes them across the Red Sea. They look back, and there's Egyptians. Like, did you not think that they were going to follow you, right? They're sitting out here. You took us out here with hunger. He's like, nope, there's quail and manna. You took us out here. We're going to look at the thirst aspect. Nope, we gave you the rock. You just can't please these people. And it's a parallel. I know we see it in our own life as well. Galatians 5. Galatians. I guess it could be Galatians. Galatians 5. 16 through 18 says, "This I say then, walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. For the flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary the one to the other, so that ye cannot do the things that ye would. But if ye be led of the Spirit, ye are not under the law." We forget where we come from because we spend so much time feeding this flesh. It's very easy to forget just where you came from and what you promised to never do again and what God saved you from when you put that foot back into that pond, that pool, that side of the fence, whatever it is that you want to call it. So when God saves our souls, when he saves our lives at the very least, it isn't enough because in the next instant we realize he's not feeding us. And then we sit down at the table and we realize that he's waiting to feed us. And then the very next instant it's not enough because he's not providing us substance of water. Exodus 17, 1 through 3 says, "And all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of Sin after their journeys, according to the commandment of the Lord, and pitched in Rephidim. And there was no water for the people to drink. Wherefore the people did chide with Moses and said, Give us water that we may drink. And Moses said unto them, Why chide ye with me? Wherefore do ye tempt the Lord? And the people thirsted there for water. And the people murmured against Moses and said, Wherefore is this, that thou hast brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst? Give it a break. These guys drive me crazy. I know it's the same way with me, like I said. But what is it going to take? right? I mean, how many times do we have to ask ourselves the same question? But what is it going to take with these people? They're just looking for something to be angry about. They're looking for something so that they can say, well, I got you, Lord. This is how it used to be. You told me this. You said it was going to be this. You told me that you wouldn't do this. Here it is. And they're standing there with their arms crossed, probably saying, oh, God, yeah, well, you got us out of Egypt, but great job. You forgot that they were going to follow us. And God says, no, I didn't. And, oh, great job, God. You got us across the Red Sea, but you forgot you had to feed us. No, I didn't. Oh, great job, God. You got us across the Red Sea and gave us food, but you forgot we need water. No, I didn't. Just slow down for a second. Realize that this is a process, and where you are is a product of where you've been and what I'm doing and where I'm trying to take you. We take and we take and we feed this flesh for as long as we possibly can. We forget where we came from when just having our lives was enough. Here it is. I knew it was somewhere. I looked for it 3 times, though. The day that you got saved, that connection to the Lord was enough. That day that he brought you out of Egypt and he freed you from bondage, in that instant, that was enough. You forgot about where you've been because this is the only place that you've ever been starting over. Right? That was your clean slate. God feeds us and he takes care of us and he helps us get plugged into the ministry if we're willing and able. And a Bible believing church if we're willing and able. And a seat at the king's table with him if we're willing and able. And we say, it's about time. It's about time, God. You saved me and got me some food and got me some water. I don't even like this drink. Where's my Sprite? Right? Where's my Perrier or whatever the sparkling water is? Right? To forget the fact that we brought nothing into this world and we will not bring anything with us. Any of the stuff that we have that collects dust. I think it was a bit that I saw, it's an old one, talking about, I think it was George Carlin, actually. Not the most family-friendly routine, but he did a comedy bit about stuff. He said, literally, our entire life is about stuff. We get a car and we put stuff in it, and it's to take us to go get more stuff. And our house is literally just stuff to hold more stuff, right? That's all it is. That's all we're looking for. And I think that we forget just where we came from and what God did for us so that we don't have to worry about that stuff. We don't have to care about that stuff because it's not coming with us. God has more than provided for us. He saved us from the bondage of Egypt, and then he set our feet upon the rock so that we could look back in a good light, the first time that we look back in the rear view in the right perspective and say, here's where I was, here's where I am, and here's where I'm going. He chose us. In 1 Peter 2:9 it says, but ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood and holy nation, a peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. That's the perspective that we should be holding. That's what we need to take forward and look at where we've been so that we can understand where we are and where we're going. I'm counting how many times I can say that this week. He says, called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. If you truly want to know where you were, that's your verse. You were in darkness. You were cast out. You were separated from the love of Jesus Christ, and you were destined and bound for the lake of fire. That's where you came from. So you didn't come from the good job. You didn't come from the world that was taking care of you. You came from the driver's seat, driving directly against the will of God because you're either with him or against him. That's where you truly came from. You came from a place that God saved you from because you didn't have the ability to do it. And when I say you, I say me because I'm the same way, right? Asking yourself where you are is always a great exercise. That's why we started off with that kind of as the concept last week. But in order to do that, you have to know where you've been. You can't do that accurately unless we do what we've looked at this week. You can assess where you are, but it starts with understanding where you come from. Without the chastisement and the praises of the wins and the losses and the ability to make decisions concerning where you've been, you'll never be able to put that stake in the ground of where you're at. I'll never forget, I struggled with that. I got saved probably 1,500 times. Jesus Christ saved my soul 1,500 times probably. It's, he saved me once. But I just struggled with that. Growing up, I was always afraid that I did it wrong. I was always afraid. I was like, man, I'd sit there every time. I hated the revivals that our church would do. I hated when they would call to the altar. I hated when they would do a salvation message because it just made me so uncomfortable because I'm like, I don't want to do this again. I don't want to feel this way. I want to know that I'm good and that I'm done and that I did this right and that Jesus saved me. I don't feel like I should have to feel like this over and over and over and over. It's the most crippling debilitating feeling in the world than it's supposed to be, I think. Now, on this side of it, I pray for people to feel that way, and it makes me cringe because I feel bad, but it's worth it, right? If that's what it takes to get somebody to get down on their knees or to say it in their hands and put their hands in their face, or their face in their hands and pray it, then it's worth it. But that's the stake. Bob Alexander said, you drive the stake. You take that day and no more questions, no more, not understanding, no more looking back where you've been and trying to go back or being afraid of where you come from or where you're at. Drive the stake and be done with it. And I did that, and it was the greatest decision I've ever made. I think I was saved as a younger kid. I really do. But it doesn't matter because now I know. Now I know exactly where I came from and where I was that day so that I can know where I'm at this day, looking back at that day so that I can understand where I'm supposed to go going forward. And that's the concept. You can't define where you are if you don't know where you've been. And once we do that, then we can establish where we're supposed to go, and we can do something for the Lord. So that's it. That was definitely the shortest one I've ever done. All right, let's pray. Dear God, thank you for this lesson. Thank you for the ability to open your book freely, Lord, whenever, wherever, however we want, Lord. I pray that we would keep that perspective and understand that there have been people before us that didn't have that opportunity, Lord, that we do now, and that we would understand where we come from, where you've plucked us out of, Lord, that you brought us out of the miry clay and set our feet upon the rock, that we can know where we are today so that we can understand what it is that you'd have for us and where we're supposed to go in the future, Lord, where you're trying to take us. And I thank you for your word. I thank you for these people. Thank you for the school that we get to meet in. I pray that you keep us safe for the rest of the night, and that you get the honor and glory out of what we do and the decisions that we make. I thank you for your son and his sacrifice, that we can accept that freely and that we don't ever have to worry about that being faltering or falling short, Lord. We understand that that's perfect and that we can take that to the bank. So I thank you for that. Thank you for everything that you do for us. In Jesus' name, amen.
What was the first Peter?
2:9.